In this video, the Dreamium 10-3, different brain processes of sensation, perception, feeling, and cognitive tasks will be discussed. And we will see all these are different types of consciousness that develop one by one. Different types of the brain processing of information, as was told, are sensation, perception, feeling, and cognitive tasks. Please consider many definitions and models that we discuss here in this video or these videos. Do not project straightly the definitions that are given in psychology or neuroscience. These are the terms which are used in the subject of the kinematics of the brain activities. The mentioned information processing in the brain happens in sequence, as mentioned before, and each advanced type will come after the previous type. More the coming in sequence when each process develops, they are overlapping each other as well. So the pathway for each advanced one is a structure wiring of related previous pathways. Each process is accompanied with increase of kinematic strain carrier wave, kinetic strain carrier wave. Those by increasing wave kinematics, sensation will promote to perception, arouse basic feeling, emerge advanced feeling, and advance to reasoning in sequence. Action can couple with any level of process advancement, and time duration of any of these processes is different and will be longer for any more advanced process. By elongating duration time, the concept of time also will identify. Up to activation of the feeling process, time is felt about present or past, considering such a feeling is the result of sensory and short-term memories in interaction with long-term memory units, which happened before. Extending strain residual expansion loops to over the prefrontal cortex, advanced emotion as a structure network of previous loops to the more advanced loop of the brain, processing loop of the brain. And the action loop will be actually it will function a little bit not in a structure with other processing loop, but a little more loose. So may couple to any of them, but if there is the prefrontal cortex loop active, then will be coupled to the last and advanced processing loop of the brain. These processes, in combination with the different type of sensation, perception, and feeling loops, will extend to reasoning range of loops. Up to feeling processing loop, the type of the process remains passive in nature, and we have almost no control over their proceeding, although with higher focus, process will intensify. This is especially what's happening in dreams. Of course, a type of dreaming is called lucid dreaming that rarely happens, and it is said that dreamer can have some control or narrative of the dream, the way it goes, which mostly returns back to the strain inputs we had introduced before sleep, and then there remained strain uh, residuals from the waking time will be pop up in the dream. So by a contour in the thoughts before sleep, we have contoured the narrative goes on in the sleep. Throughout dreaming, short-term memory pieces and long-term memory structure dialogue to each other as observer and observee. This refers to the sleep special functioning that want to fit strong short-term memory pieces to the long-term structure. So, uh, dreaming somehow is monitoring how the short-term memories convert to long-term memory. As different types of facts, scenes, and episodic uh, have got memories, have got uh, different locations of sensory brain, short and emotion and work memories have also their own locations. Short-term memory is an integration of facts, scenes, and episodic memories as a stationary wave over the sensory brain, continuing into the hippocampal formation. Feeling is a collective emotion memory uh, recalled over the Papez circuit, and working memory is a stational wave of the strain energy and an integration of activated algorithm, habit, beliefs, cultural norms, decision making, and skill memories or memory units over the prefrontal cortex. They will recall and join together to channelize the strain energy streamlines over the related long-term memory units, stream bits, uh, to arrive to a conclusion or uh, performing an action to balance again the cortex layers uh, for the strain residuals. Working memory in sleep stages and relaxed waking stages will not form due to state requirement of the higher strain carrier wave kinetics, which are needed for to form working memory. Formation of a simple observation or uh, visualization needs a sensory wave where to understand, recognize, and see a bigger picture of events needs a short-term memory to form. Those reading and digesting a subject needs a short memory that include the watching words, sentences, and or paragraphs or hearing them, and in the same time having a picture of their coagulation together in a pattern. Reviewing feelings that occurred along similar scenario that the short-term memory match a connected feeling will arouse by that. In dreaming sleep, sensory channels are closed. Those first releasing strains will recall a feeling, and that feeling in its turn uh, will initiate the return verb from the limbic system to sensory brain again and recall sensory memories that fit that feeling memory. This feeling process will link the sensory memories in a narrative, and we will perceive them as a dream. The same procedure may apply for advanced feeling and reasoning in waking by applying ethic rules and procedures, implementing them in a plan to act in waking time, of course. Formation of short-term memory lasts for a short time and will go under subconscious level, where a working memory remaining conscious level at least comes up and goes under that level intervally. However, capacity of the prefrontal cortex to preserve a working memory is limited to few. During its fresh period, it will be saved as an advanced feeling or a conceptual memory that may retrieved eventually in future. The saved feeling or conceptual memory is the image center between the related short-term and working memories. Many memories may seem only as parts of knowledge bank and behave informative when excited, like a friend telephone number or knowledge about a mountain in a certain location of the world that never had been visited. They flash a name, a face, or a number, or a location under an umbrella of fact memory. They will be recalled in connection in a weak or a strong short-term memory. When they flash in mind without any connection, they have been used in a weak short-term memory so that connection will not appear over conscious level. To remind a short-term memory will start either by a strong input stimulus or a center of an image that is itself an internal stimulus. By increasing strain residual beyond the absorbing capacity of the location, excess strain will follow to next neural assemblies. This process continues for scenes and layouts in the temporal cortex, continuing within the limbic system for large strain loads. Uh, the limbic system has got a huge storing capacity to absorb extra strains from all over the cortex. If still excess strain flux uh, exceed the limbic system, it flows to pathways over the prefrontal cortex, which happens in high kinematic strain energy flows, which means in waking, especially in focused waking state. If still too much to follow, even it will pop up and relieve from the limbic system straightly to motor output, when we are angry and we cannot have a control over our behavior. There remain the strains in limbic system, meaning in hippocampus and amygdala, will release during the sleep stages due to low wave kinematic at that state. In dreaming stage, they appear as dream narratives. In any brain activity, there is a climax point for the strained residuals, either in sensation, perception, or cognition stage of function or processing. It is called the center of image or consciousness point of the activity. The center of image will move to more advanced state by increasing the strain flux rate. The last layer of strain energy loop is action loop, which connects the frontal pole, the location of the frontal pole, to the motor area, where frontal pole function as the frontal loop strain reservoir. All other brain processing loops will become strongly structured in the brain behavior except the motor loop that may couple with any of the processing loops, like imitation in sensation loop, or inspiration in perception loop, or high emotional in feeling state in feeling loop, or strongly logical behavior in cognitive tasks. There are different mind states based on employed processing loop or combined loop. Case 1 is when weak short-term memory current will be correlated with sensory input, and sensory input are dominant follow that continue to hippocampal formation and back to the parietal cortex. Consolidation of related type of memory occurs during deep sleep stages, and recall of them happens by sensory memory during waking time. Weak sensory inputs in the thigh region of stress straining correlation. If you notice in the stress straining typical relationship figure, mostly are not noticed and they will not become aware of. They may function as noises. So normally sensory channels ignore very weak sensory inputs, or those which the sensory area is not sensitive to them based on the continuing brain activity. In case B, the other type of memory is episodic, including biographical memories. This type of memory is carried by a short-term memory and recycled back to the parietal cortex. They normally have a content of emotion, although could be not strong. The sensory brain in this case will communicate its excess strain energy with the amygdala further to the hippocampus. The returning pathway is through congruent cortex, The related states are relaxed waking and sleep dreaming, which happen all as a case B brain activities. Case C is the next more advanced state of mind. Uh, Along case C related pathways, not only strainous residuals that exceed the strain absorbable limit of the sensory brain, but the prefrontal cortex will also be engaged and receive additional strain or excess strain loads from the limbic circuits. The amygdala and the pappus circuit will become fully active in addition to the hippocampal lobe. Emotion in this case is more complicated and more advanced, like terrorized, loved, uh, sympathy compared to the basic emotion of the fear, like, or just having a company. Some primary prefrontal lobes will be integrated with the previous lobes, which are sensory, perception, and feeling lobes. The next case of the mind state is case D. In this stage, language system to some extent will be added to the previous lobes, backing the reasoning loop. There have been debates for years that which of the reasoning and language ability comes first, as well as does thought generation happens before production of the command for action, or it is reverse, or they happen in parallel. The kinematics of the brain activities theory expect that these pathways are in parallel and interact together in a structured way. We see in high emotional mode, reasoning lobe will be bypassed and the amygdala relieve straightly strain energy into the active loop, or in imitation process, mirror neurons in motor area replay the same has happened in sensory areas. In case E, language system and reasoning both will be highly activated, and primary lobes of sensation, perception, and feeling will function more weakly in the combination of these loops together. As a summary, consciousness in different cases of A, B, C, D, and E, they back sensation, perception, feeling, and cognition processes of the brain activities. Emotion has most dominant role in frequent brain activities. Fundamentally, emotion refers to strain residuals, and memory units are consolidated by strain residuals in different neural connectivity configurations that decode the memory when they are recalled. Emotion arousal refers to a certain strain package that is absorbed and dissolved by an emotion memory unit in the amygdala. Similarly, other processes of sensation, perception, and cognition will be approached when coagulated sensory short-term memory or working memory package will be absorbed and dissolved by related memory units in related location of the brain along related loops. Mostly right side of the prefrontal cortex is specialized in advanced emotion, and left prefrontal cortex is in reasoning algorithm. The amygdala is the biggest strain reservoir in the brain, being charged and discharged strain residuals between waking and sleep. As an example, the trait of anger is associated circularly with the left and right supplementary motor areas, as well as the right lateral frontal pole, where the amygdala is hyperconnectively involved in radial strain exchanges. Basic emotional loops like fear, continue advanced emotional loops, and reasoning loops over the prefrontal. That is, this kind of advanced behavior are a structural loop of all those mentioned activity loops. But sometimes the internal produced inputs will change actually the composition of the loops in the final behavior, and one of them became dominantly connected to the behavior. Internally produced inputs may change the dominant processing loop from one to another. As a summary, consciousness has different shapes of sensation, perception, feeling, and cognitive tasks. When anyone is dominant, the related state of mind is determining the consciousness state. Each of these cases employ different mixture of pathways. It means the combined pathways is structured of sensation and other related processes that have chance to occur in that stage. We are received to the end of this Dreamium 10-3. Please do not forget to send your comments and questions to mostini@gmail.com. Thank you for watching this.